Killer, dude. Yeah, that looks great.
I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, Jace Price of The Last Detail.
Yes, sir.
What's up, dude?
Good
What's
brother,
going
good brother.
on, man?
Yeah, we're good, man.
To give you guys a little bit of background information, I'll have Jace kind of explain like the full story, but like, so The Last Detail, right? The last cut, this compound. This has been my go-to compound for the last literal 8 years. What has happened with The Last Detail in the last 8 years, and how did it all get started?
First off, for those who don't know me, my name is Jace Price, the owner of Tilly Products. I was born in Queens, New York, and I was raised on a small island in the Caribbean called Antigua. And I've been married for 20 years, and I have 2 kids. And I've recently retired from the military after 21.4 years of
Dude,
service.
congratulations,
Thank you.
man. That's
Thank
awesome,
you, thank
dude.
you.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I have 12 years of detailing experience.
Yep.
And basically, these came about because I have been in situations where detailing in my garage wasn't always ideal, especially in Las Vegas. You know, I didn't have AC at the time, and my garage got up to 120, 130 degrees. And a lot of products I was using, they were great products, you know, overall, but they weren't doing exactly what I wanted them to do when it came to those less than ideal conditions. I just had a random thought, you know what, let me just try to make a product for myself. I didn't know I didn't even know where to start. I didn't know anything about it. The biggest issue that I wanted to deal with was, you know, working in dry, really hot climate.
Yep.
To have the longevity in work time to actually work the paint and get the results you need without having to do multiple things to get a product to work. That's where the last cut came about back in 2017.
After this, what had happened? You dropped the Last Cut Plus.
The Last Cut Plus is 25% more aggressive than the Last Cut. So it's still a compound, obviously both compounds, but it's gonna have 25% more aggression, which means, you know, they're all diminishing abrasives.
Yep.
But it means that this is gonna start more aggressive, then it's gonna break down to a bigger abrasive than this would. So you'll get more cutting action throughout your polishing process with the Last Cut Plus as opposed to the Last Cut. And it was really designed because I had quite a few customers who were working on harder paint. So like BMW paint with metallic in it is extremely hard. And they wanted something that was more efficient. So that is why the Last Cut Plus came about. It's gonna save you a little more time, you know, in the process. And can you still do it with the Last Cut? Yes.
Yep.
But you know, time is money. And when it comes down to it, you may have to step up to the Last Cut Plus to get a little more aggression to get, you know, the job done faster.
Let's go ahead and talk about what the polish is.
So the final polish, this is my baby.
Yep.
It took 5 years to finish. It took forever. The main purpose of the final polish is for your very soft clear coat or even black powder coat that has no metallic in it. Like you're gonna need something very, very fine to finish that out, to get it crystal clear. The final polish really completed the line for me because it adds an extra bit of versatility, you know, to the entire lineup, which is gonna make sure you can cut and finish any paint you run into at any time in any condition. And one of the biggest things I wanted to make sure was this did not stain rubber or plastic trim. I need to make sure if my name is on a bottle, I can stand behind it 100%, and there is no guilt with me telling anyone to buy my product. That is just what I stand for, and that is what it is here in these three products.
We're here to do some testing. You're gonna actually do a demo, and then we have something under here as well that whenever you're ready to talk about it. You ready?
Yep, you can do it.
Bam.
Yeah, new logo, new labels, clearer labels so you can understand. It's a more professional look overall. I didn't want to release new products on old design language, so we have new design language, and we're gonna release some new products in the future with a new vision.
Look at that, and so now people can follow.
Yes.
Bam, there's your heavy cut. You kind of have your indicators there.
And the biggest thing I removed, the compounding glaze that everyone keeps. Man, I got so many questions about this. No, it doesn't have any fillers in it. It says it on the bottle, but I keep getting questions about it. As I was testing, it looked like it was glazing over the surface using the foam pad.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I put glaze on it, because I wasn't stuck in the old terminology.
Yeah,
I
you
was
weren't
just
stuck in the filler terminology. Yeah.
Calling what I saw, basically. People got over it over time, but I still get questions now after 8 years.
Yep.
So the compounding glaze is gone.
Yep.
Same product, but just in a new bottle without compounding glaze.
No, let's go ahead and jump into this. So where do you want to get started?
Yeah, so before you even start correcting paint, the biggest variable that you have is the paint hardness. People ask me all the time, oh, I'm working on this car, what pad and polish should I use? it's never that simple. If it was, then I would definitely be pairing pads with polishes, and it would be clear cut and case closed.
Yeah.
But it's never that simple, because as the paint hardness increases or lessens, and that's gonna change the pad combination you're gonna need to get the results that you're going for. So the first thing you always need to do is a test spot. After 12 years of detailing, I do a test spot every single time.
Yeah.
Yes, I can kind of gauge, what I'll need, just off the top of my head, but I still do a test spot to make sure I'm using the right combination, because at the end of the day, you have to listen to what the paint wants.
Yep.
It's not what's on the bottle. These are all guides, right? This is,
Yep.
a full guide, but the paint is going to tell you exactly what it wants and what it needs based on the result that you, as a detailer, know that you're going for. If it's a one-step or a full, two-step paint correction, or even three if you choose to go that far. But only the paint is going to tell you exactly what it wants, so you must do a test spot.
Yeah.
And you can start, with the least aggressive method as well. So you're just checking her paint here. Oh,
And that right there, that's just
Yep.
from build up down there. That's from, closing the hatch. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna do a quick test spot with the last cut.
And it looks like we're
cut pad.
rocking Buff and Shine Blueberry,
Shad,
right?
blueberry,
Okay.
yep.
And so,
So-
this from the source here. So you're a dot guy then, right?
Yep, I'm a
Key
dot
size.
guy.
Okay.
So for the first pass, we're just gonna kind of pass as priming. I
Okay.
kind of just like wipe it in.
Okay.
So instead of using a whole bunch of additional product,
Yep.
I just do a dot and gonna wipe it in for the first pass.
Okay.
And that should be enough to get the pad primed. Because they had lubrication in the product, you don't have to add a whole bunch to get the pad primed. So
And
you'll
then-
still get decent.
I always shake compound before use every single
Yep,
time. I
shake
give it
it
a
every
couple
time.
shakes, just something to remember, right? Just so that way any of the oils or whatever that might settle, you just want to make sure everything's mixing properly, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just add a couple more. And then with it being diminishing abrasives, you never want to start spreading the product on speed 1, which is something that people used to do in the past.
Yeah.
Some people still do it today. But because it's diminishing, once you start polishing at a lower speed, you're actually starting to break down the abrasives. So
Okay.
whenever you actually start, your full speed polishing, you're gonna have less aggression than you would if you just were to dot the area, and then, or you can even bump the trigger just to get the product to spread over the area, and then you go to your correction speed.
Okay.
So try your best not to spread it on speed 1. Like if you're used to
Okay.
it, just try to get out of that habit if
Okay.
you're using any one of these products, because you're going to reduce the actual aggression of the product. So you can either do your dots just to get it spread,
Okay.
or you can bump the trigger just to get it over the area. Right?
Yep. Okay, so right now you're at a speed of 5 right now, right?
Yep, speed 5.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to bump your speed up with any of my products, because with the lower heat generation,
Okay.
the actual rotation helps.
So we're doing our wipe off right
Yep,
now.
so doing a wipe off.
Oh, dude, one and done. Like you did it.
Yep.
So you bumped straight to a speed of 4 or 5, right?
Yep.
So you jumped straight to a working speed, right?
Yep.
So you're not starting at 2, you're not starting at 3, you're beginning to work.
Yeah,
That's awesome,
so,
dude.
yeah, so basically our test spot kind of revealed that we can one step, and get the defects out with just your blueberry pad and the last cut.
Yeah.
So if you do have heavier defects, if you had rids that were left behind, you can either step it up to a more aggressive pad. You can go to a microfiber cut pad or even a wool pad, to get beneath those rids. Of course, if you have enough paint to safely do it.
Yep.
But as we see right there, there is really no need for a second step. You can still jewel it if you choose to.
Yep.
But there's no absolute need to do that. So we're gonna work on this lower section right here.
Okay.
Again, we're gonna use a more aggressive pad. We'll see if we can get a slight bit of marring, and then try to clean it up with the final polish.
So do last cut again, original, right?
last cut again.
We don't need to jump up to plus.
Yep,
Right.
not yet.
Okay.
But I did see that there were deeper scratches in that lower section. So
Yep.
that's why I'm stepping it up to a more aggressive pad,
Okay.
just to make sure we can get beneath it all, in the first go. I always recommend working under a light. Me personally, I would typically have like spotlights behind me while I'm working,
Yep.
so I can see exactly what I'm doing, because I don't want to polish longer than I have to. Yeah, so the longer you polish, the more paint you remove, right? So the earlier you can stop, the better it is, for the levels of paint, and that way you're going to maintain the integrity of the finish, the clear coat on the vehicle. I mean, it's really just being transparent with your customer.
Yeah.
I mean, to me personally, I always tell them it's better to stop at 80 than to try to get to 90 and end back up at 10.
Yep.
So you have to be clear with clear to them about what they can expect, and be truthful to yourself to know when you need to stop and leave, you know, a deep scratch in there.
Yep. Okay, so you're jumping right up to a working speed.
Yeah.
And this time you're on a microfiber pad, right?
Microfiber. Yep. Trying to see through the light to make sure I'm getting some
Good
correction.
Yep.
And make sure I'm maintaining pad rotation as well.
Okay.
Because a lot of times you work in areas that have curves and your pad stops moving.
Correct.
And then you're just wasting time because your pad is literally just sitting on the paint.
Yep. And this has a 12 millimeter throw on this one. So, I mean,
That's
this one's
pretty
actually, it's whipping pretty good.
Yeah.
Now with microfiber, so, you know, one of the biggest things with microfiber is that you're going to get buildup, right?
Yep.
Microfiber is going to generate a lot more heat.
More
What's
heat.
going to happen is that you're going to have, you know, glazing that's going to happen within the pad, right? It's going to
Yep.
happen over the top of the pad. So for you, especially when using last cut, right, a brush is a necessity. Now,
Yes, absolutely.
do you prefer to blow out pads with an air compressor, or do you prefer a pad washer? Like, what do you like to do?
So me personally, generally I use a brush.
Okay.
But if you have an air compressor, that's like the ultimate,
Okay. Okay,
option
so you like
for
air compressor,
air.
okay.
Yep, air to me is the best because
Okay.
you can get the fibers to stand up as
As
you know
best as
as best as possible with the ear. But a lot of people don't have air compressors, so a pad brush is more than good enough.
More than plenty. Okay.
Yep,
Cool.
definitely an improvement.
Oh yeah. But this is where, so we obviously went with microfiber, we went with last cut, right? So now this is the perfect opportunity if there was, for any example, any micro marring left, or
Yep.
if we had anything from the pad, you know, from the pad and compound combo, we're gonna pull that out with, you know, obviously the
Yep.
polish.
Yeah, so with finishing and the final polish, because the abrasives are so fine, sometimes you have to increase the aggression of the pad
Yep.
to get the proper working, you know, effectiveness that you need. 'Cause you got to kind of think of, if you have coarse hair,
Yep.
right? Would you use the softest brush possible to brush your hair?
Yeah. No.
No, you're going to use a little more aggressive brush
Yeah.
to actually move the hair follicles, right? So same concept when it comes to polishing paint.
Yep.
If the paint is on the harder side, then you may have to use a more aggressive pad to actually get some movement, you know, on from the clear coat.
Okay.
So I can see that this paint is on the harder side because using a microfiber pad, it didn't leave any crazy micro marring. I can see a slight haze, which you know we can get a little bit better, but it's not incredibly soft to where you have micro marring everywhere.
Yep.
So I'm gonna move to the polishing pad. Generally, people would move straight to the finishing pad, right, to finish paint. But if the paint's on the harder side, a finishing pad isn't always going to give you the result you need because you need something more aggressive.
Yep.
Right. So you, as a detailer, need to understand that sometimes you just need to not stick to what the pad says on the back.
Correct.
And
It's what the paint wants.
exactly.
It's-
And another thing too, like you always got to remember, like the more like polish or compound you put on the pad, the more aggression you get.
Yep.
So I was working on a 56 Cadillac here recently, and that was the softest paint I've ever encountered.
Yep.
And I was down to a finishing pad and one dot
One dot
of the final
Okay.
polish, like
All right.
one dot. Like
Yeah.
2 dots was marring it. It
Okay.
was insanely soft. So I had to back down my aggression level and add less product to be able to finish that paint. So
Okay.
it's always just being able to read, you know, what the paint, you know, is asking for, and you have to be able to adjust to get the result you need.
Very cool.
Yep. So I'm just gonna add a few dots here.
Okay, so we're spreading that in. Okay.
Yep. We gotta
Going up to
bump this
working
down a little
speed.
bit. So they had to bump it up a little bit just to get some pad rotation.
Yep. You're at a beveled edge down here.
Yep. And you gotta take your time as well. Like I see people moving too fast, you know, when it comes to polishing paint, but you have to give the pad and product time to work in a specified area before you move on.
Yep.
So the slower you go, hand speed wise, you're actually maximizing the ability of the polish and the pad, and improving your efficiency as well, because you won't have to go over it again.
Yep. Sweet,
Yeah.
dude.
And with the final polish, I find that removing with a lower nap towel
Okay.
is definitely beneficial.
Okay.
So it definitely makes it come up a lot easier.
Nice. I'm seeing a little bit of lint from that particular towel,
Yeah.
but minus that,
Yep.
it's a pretty killer, dude. Yeah, that looks great. What other tips and tricks do you recommend? You know, people jumping into this.
Yeah, first off, get a paint depth gauge.
Okay.
Like
right,
you have
okay.
to have one of those.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're flying blind and you're just like taking a chance and seeing if you get to the end or not. Yeah, so you need to have a paint depth gauge. Yeah, make sure you have proper paint levels before you start the correction process. And you always want to make sure you use the least aggressive method possible. You don't just go straight to a wool pad, you know, if you don't know exactly what you're working with and you really just don't know. Like you have to start least aggressive and then work your way up if you have the available paint to work with that. Then you got to practice. Like you have to put the time in. The best teacher is really you get a machine in your hand, putting the pad on it, get some compound or polish, and put it on the paint and seeing what results you get. Yes, you can get some great knowledge from me, but the true experience is going to come from you actually getting that hands-on and getting dirty.
So this has been an awesome segment. Jace, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, brother.
Coming
Thanks
out,
for
dude. I
having me.
appreciate it, dude.
Thanks
And
for
so
having me.
we are sending this over to
me in the void. So if you don't want to feel like you're in a void, you should check out the rest of these awesome TRCMA segments we have over on a little playlist you can check out right there. Awesome. And if you haven't already, please hit that like button, big old thumbs up, helps us in the algorithm, and subscribe to the Rag Company YouTube channel if you haven't done it already. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next one.